Okay, so this is going to be a math proration problem. Generally, it's the seller, the buyer who owns the property on the day of closing. So the buyer is the one who's responsible for that day's closing costs. So if the average property taxes are $8,500, let's say we have taxes on a property are $8,500, and the closing is taking place on the end of January, February 1st, okay? Who gets a credit at closing? Well, the buyer's going to get the seller's going to get a credit if they paid for the first quarter taxes. You know, taxes are billed quarterly. So the first quarter ends after March, so it ends right here, right? So every 3 months we draw a longer line, right? So January, February, March, and then you draw a larger line. Every 3 months you do that. So you could visually see now where every quarter ends. And so if a closing is taking place on February 1st, who gets a credit and how much? Well, what we're going to do is we take our calculator and we do, if the taxes are $8,500, we divide that by 12 months. And then we could see every day is worth $708.33. And if we divide it by 30 days in a month, every day is equal to $23.61. So if the closing took place on the end of January, first day of February here, who's going to get a credit? Well, the seller paid the taxes for the first quarter, but they're selling over here. The seller's going to get a credit for the unused time in between. So 2 full months. So $708.33. 708.33 times 2. That's $1,416.66 that the seller gets a credit for.
The taxes, the property taxes, or the taxes?
Property taxes, correct. Because the seller gets billed the first day of the beginning of the year for the whole year. However, they only get billed quarterly. They only have to pay their taxes quarterly. All right. So what we did is we figured out if the taxes are $8,500 for the year, we divided 8,500 by 12 months. That shows you that every month is equal to $708.33 in taxes that are paid every month. So we see that there's 2 full months here. If they're closing on January 31st, there's 2 full months that the seller already paid for. If they paid the first quarter taxes, which goes up to here, that they're not going to be getting paid, that they already paid for, but they're not going to be living there. So the seller gets the credit back for that money. Understand?
Yes.
So,
so for a quarter, it's 8,500.
8,500 are the taxes for the year.
Okay, for the whole year. Okay.
Yeah.
And you said the quarters, how much is it for a quarter?
Okay. So basically, this is what we did. Where's the whiteboard? Okay, here's the whiteboard. I know I have this already, proration of taxes. I have it written down here somewhere. Calculating mortgage, special assessment, proration of taxes. Okay, I have a problem here already for that. Let me just try to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so if the can you see this?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a screenshot. Okay.
All right. So if the taxes are $8,500, you can either divide it by 360 days to find out how much the taxes are every day, or you could divide it by 12 months. 8,500 divided by 12 is $708.33 a month, or $23.61 per day, per diem. All right. So if there's 2 full months of taxes of January, here we see the closings taking place in January 31st, and we still have a full month of February and March, the seller is going to get a credit for these 2 full months. And how much is each month worth?
$708.33.
$708.33. So we do $708.33 times 2.
Oh.
Right?
Gotcha. So if it was closing was done at the end of the quarter.
Okay, now so what let's so exactly. So let's do another math problem here. So if let's go back to this sheet here. Now what happens if the closing takes place on what's this January, February, March, April, May 17th? What happens if it takes place on May 17th? Well, we could see that the seller paid the taxes to the second quarter. Well, who gets a credit and for how much? Well, we know that the seller is going to get a credit because the closing's taking place here, not at the end of the month, but in the middle. And they paid for the full quarter of the taxes. So the seller is going to get paid for this amount in between. You see, the seller must get a credit for the amount they paid in advance, but won't be living here. There's one full month that they're going to get a credit for, right? Plus, if there's 30 days in the month, and their closing's taking place on the 17th. How many days are left? 13 days left in the month.
You add 2361.
So,
13.
but hold on a second. Who owns the property on the day of closing?
Oh, the buyer.
The buyer. So we're going to actually have to count 14 days. All right, so you see how I give here in this explanation, you can see down here, 708.33 plus 14 days. Remember the buyers, okay, so 708.33 for the one full month over here, plus the 14 days. If it's 23.61 per day, we got to do 23.61 times the 14.
Okay, so, oh, because the buyer doesn't own it until the
The buyer owns it on the day of closing.
Okay.
So here, let's do it on the whiteboard really quick.
30.54.
If it's, what is it per day? 23, how much was it? 23.61 per day? Yeah, 23.61 per day. Oops, I don't know why it's doing it in red.
Times 14 is 330.51.
23.61 per day times 14 days left in that month, right?
Yeah.
So what does it come out to? 23.61 times 14 days left in the month. That gives us $333.54 plus one full month, which is 708.33, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus 708.33.
So they're going to get a credit of 1,038.87.
Correct. So $1,038.87. But who gets the credit?
The seller.
The seller, because that's for the time that they're not going to be living there, right? So if we look at we go back here, we could see the closing's taking place here, but they paid the taxes up to here. So the time in between, they're going to be getting the credit for it. Now, how do they make it difficult on exam? They worded it like this. You're going to have two exam answer options that will have the correct math problem, the correct math answer. However, it's worded like this. Debit seller, credit buyer, or debit buyer, credit seller. I know, now you're like, well, hold on. Who gets a credit? The seller. So now you just got to look for which one of these answer options said that the seller was getting the credit with the right math problem. Credit seller, that's this one, okay? That's how they make it hard. They say credits, because the reason why they do that is because whatever is a debit to one side is a credit to the other. So they'll say debit buyer, credit seller, credit debit seller, credit buyer.
Okay.
But we know over here the seller is going to be getting a credit. So all we got to do is look at the answer option that shows that the seller is getting the credit. And then we did the math. The math was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how they make it hard. It's not the math that's hard. It's when you're reading the question and it scrambles your brain. Debit buyer, credit seller, debit buyer. And you're like, oh my God, what happened? I mean, you even just did that, right?
Set you up. you get it wrong, or they just want to, I guess.
Well, the reason why they word it like that is because whatever's a credit to one side's a debit to the other. So, I mean, it's confusing when they're doing it on the answers for the math problem. I think that they shouldn't do that
I think
because it does make it even more confusing, and it seems like they're doing it on purpose. But
well,
I know why they're doing it, but it's stupid.
I think they're trying to see if you're paying attention to like the details.
Probably. But that's it. Okay. So that's the math of it. So I will post that online, or we could actually look at one of the, or I'll steal some of the video from one of the previous classes where I explain this in a little more detail. But that's basically the same. That's basically the gist of it. But what I taught you here is this. You have to draw this. When you're taking the exam and they ask you about proration of taxes, I want you to remember this. So you want to draw the letter of each month and put each one in its own box. And every third box, you're going to draw a long line. So now you could visually see when each quarter begins and when each quarter ends. And who gets a credit? Whoever paid for it. So if the seller paid for the taxes to the end of the quarter, but we're selling the property before then, the seller's going to have to get a credit for that time in between, which they're not going to be living there.
Okay, so if they close at the end of the quarter, so
If they close at the end of the quarter, nobody gets a credit.
okay, so the buyer would then take on the property tax, just like
Either that or the credit would be for a day, and unless you're closing on the last day of the quarter,
Gotcha.
All right.
Typically the problem is going to be where the seller is most likely getting the credit.
Probably, unless they didn't pay the taxes, they're delinquent in paying the taxes that they're living there.
Yeah.
The seller is usually going to get the credit on that, and now it's just a matter of finding out how much.
Okay.
All right. Good.
Good.
All right. And if you wanted to read that goof email that I have, I actually have it there in our shared folder. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick too, just to show it to you. It's I believe I emailed them to everybody else too. It's called an abstract of title letter, and it's a goof. And here's that letter. It basically says, you got to love this lawyer. Everyone who's ever bought a house will enjoy this. A New Orleans lawyer sought a house for an FHA loan for a client who lost their house during Hurricane Katrina and they wanted to rebuild. He was told that the loan would be granted if he could prove satisfactory title to the parcel of property being offered as collateral. The title to the property dated back to 1803, which took the lawyer 3 months to track down. After sending the information to the FHA, he received the following reply. Upon review of your letter adjoining your client's loan application, we note that the request is supported by an abstract of title. While we compliment the able manner in which you have prepared and presented the application, we must point out to you that you have only cleared the title to the proposed collateral property back to 1803. Before the final approval can be accorded, it'll be necessary to clear title back to its origin. Annoyed, the lawyer responded as follows. Your letter regarding the title case number has been received, and while I note that you wish to have title extended further than 194 years covered in the present application, I was unaware that any educated person in the country, particularly those working in the property area, would know that Louisiana was purchased by the U.S. from France in 1803, the year of origin identified in our application. So for the edification of the uninformed FHA bureaucrat, the title to the land prior to U.S. ownership was obtained by France, which had acquired it by right of conquest from Spain. The land came into possession of Spain by right of discovery made in the year 1492 by a sea captain named Christopher Columbus, who had been granted a privilege of seeking the new route to India by a Spanish monarch, Isabella. The good Queen Isabella, being a pious woman, that means she's very religious, and almost as careful about titles as the FHA, took the precaution of securing the blessings of the Pope before she sold her jewels to finance Columbus's expedition. Now, the Pope, as I'm sure you're aware, is the emissary of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and God is commonly accepted to have created the world. Therefore, it's believed to be safe to presume that God has also made the part of the world called Louisiana. God would therefore be the owner of origin, and his origin dates back before the beginning of time, the world as we know it, and the FHA. So I hope you find God's original claim to be satisfactory. Now may we have our damn loan? And then it says he got the loan. You know, I thought it was a cute little email to share, you know, especially since we just went over this in the last chapter, you know, the abstract of title with the attorney's opinion and all that. All right.
An actual email, right?
Yeah, this isn't an actual. If it, you know what, I would have put it beyond the government, but no, I think it's a goof email. But by the way, it's kind of cute. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's that, and I'll send this video off to everybody. I'll post it on that thing, and I'll send that email with everybody's info on there, letting them know that we actually did this, okay?
If we have any questions, can we just shoot you? I mean,
Absolutely. You could contact me at any time, all right?
okay. Well, it's been a pleasure, Victor.
Absolutely. Same here. All
And
right.
I
If you
wish
have any problems, any
anyone
questions,
who watches the video, good luck on the test. I'll probably be in contact with someone to
yeah, I'll
because I
send
don't have David's number anymore. It lost in the other chat.
an email off to everybody.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you so much, and have a good night.
You're welcome. All right, have a good night. Congratulations for finishing the class. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.